And I think your community of Dauphin can be viewed as an outlier. And what I say by that is, I've had an opportunity of talking to your local Crown Attorney. I've had an opportunity of talking to your local RCMP. And I was actually impressed with the things that they are doing to ensure that you are raising your families and living in a peaceful neighborhood. Now, we're all going to have some issues, and I'm sure I'm going to hear those issues. But of all the police services I have spoken to across this country, and Crown attorneys I've spoken to this country, I think you can take credit for the hard work that those two institutions are doing to keep you safe. Because it's not the case in many places in this country. All right? So, with that being said, how many of you are just simply sick and tired of waking up every morning, turning on your radio, getting on your phone and reading news stories, turning on the television, and just sick and tired of reading about another violent crime either happening in your community, outside of your community, somewhere in the province of Manitoba, or somewhere else in Canada? Who's sick and tired of this narrative that we're hearing pretty much every single day? Yeah, a vast majority of you, all right? And when you take a look, and I'm going to throw a couple of thoughts out to you, and I don't want this to be a partisan attack, but I have to give you fact, all right? You can decide if it's partisan, but I want to give you fact. So there is a fundamental difference between our party and our concept of law and order and that of the current government. And that has been in place not only for the last 11 years, but literally the last 50 plus years. I'm going to explain the origins in a moment. But the concept is that the Liberal government, this current Liberal government, notwithstanding that for the last 5 years, they have heard an earful from your Premier, Mr. Canoe, from your MP, from MLAs, from mayors of Manitoba, other premiers across the country and provinces and territories, police chiefs, presidents of police unions, and victim advocacy groups have been coming to Ottawa consistently over the last 5 years, asking the government to do their number one job. I'm going to throw this question out to you. What do you think any federal government's number one job is? Anyone?
Spend our money.
Well, that's a good one. But that's not the number one job. Keeping Canadians safe, right? Regardless of who's in government, that is their primary responsibility. But for 5 years, they've lost sight of that overall objective and goal, and they had to be constantly reminded. Because what they were saying in the House of Commons, outside the House of Commons, and to the press is, we don't have a problem. What are you talking about, rising crime levels? Now, you probably have all read recently from Statistics Canada that our crime levels have actually decreased as a nation. But if you dig deeper into that headline, it paints a different picture. It paints a different picture because violent crime is still on the rise. Significant violent crime. And in Dauphin, according to your Crown Attorney, homicides are exploding in Dauphin. Attempt murders are exploding in Dauphin. Weapon offenses, gun offenses are exploding in Dauphin. So while the national picture may say we're becoming a more safer country, when you take a look at the actual specific offenses, it paints a different picture. So What I've been hearing from Carney, what I've been hearing from Sean Fraser, our Justice Minister, is we don't have a problem. We don't have a problem with our system, our criminal justice system. It's functioning just fine. Or Sean Fraser basically said, not too recently, you know, the Conservatives are trying to paint what's happening in our country as the wild, wild west. Or he said numerous times that there's no problem with our bail system. The bail system is sound. And a previous Justice Minister under Justin Trudeau, his name was Arif Virani, a former Crown Attorney, believe it or not, of Ontario, basically said it was all in our minds that crimes were increasing, that we are a safe country. Well, you tell that to the millions of victims I've spoken to over the last 25 years, and they'll paint a very different picture. A picture where the police who do their job and arrest the individual, and that individual gets into bail court, gets sprung from bail court very easily with very few conditions, then ultimately breaches those conditions, doesn't live up to their promise, ultimately gets sentenced, and receives a sweetheart sentence. That's what's happening. I'm hearing from victims, I'm hearing from police officers that that is what's happening. And that's why we are losing trust and confidence. Who feels less confident and trustworthy right now with our criminal justice system? Yeah, that's right. Okay? And I've been part of that system. So where did things go wrong? Prior to 2015, there was, under the rule of Stephen Harper, his mandate was law and order. He introduced a whole host of changes to the Criminal Code of Canada to make us a safer country. In fact, our criminal crime rate was at its lowest in this country under his leadership. In 2015, we know what happened. We lost the election. Justin Trudeau comes in. And Justin Trudeau, if there are Liberals in the House here, Justin Trudeau is not your typical Liberal politician. He's as woke can be.
Inadequate.
In other words, completely inadequate. Okay? Not much gray matter between ear to ear. Okay? Even during question period, he had a special earpiece. You probably didn't see this on television, but he had a special earpiece in his ear, and he was being fed response lines to questions all through question period. And that really happened every single day he was in question period. So, from my perspective, the most fundamental shift that took place in our criminal justice system happened under his watch. Prior to that, there was a balance, which means that the really bad individuals committing criminal offenses were not getting easy bail. They were being detained in custody until trial, until a guilty plea. And we all know what happens when those prolific, repeat offenders get removed from society. What do you think happens? The crime rate goes down. So what I'm about to say to you, we're going to get to questions in a moment, man. What I'm about to say to you is that the criminal justice system is designed to work for everyone in this country, but there is a small portion of criminals every year who abuse it and take advantage of its weaknesses. There are roughly 15 to 20% of prolific repeat offenders, and yes, in Dauphin, you've got a list that the local police service maintains. They know the face, they know the name, they know where they're living, and they know what their choice of criminality is. They are typical rounders.